Compared to a lot of games on Polygon's 2015 Games of the Year list, Her Story might seem too simple. It doesn't have a huge open world, there's no progression system, no endless treadmill to slowly increase your character's power. It's a simple game by many metrics, and a short one. It'll take most players 3 or 4 hours to complete, max. And yet, in a way, Her Story is more impressive and ambitious than all these giant epics from 2015. It may not be the longest or most complex game of the year, but of everything on this list, it is hands down the most unique. Her Story tries something new, something we haven't seen in some form or another in dozens of other games. Her Story is a mystery game where you actually investigate. You actually feel like a detective. There are no shortcuts in Her Story. There are no real mechanics. The closest thing Her Story has to a game mechanic is a search engine, as much a game as Google. That overall simplicity of what you're actually doing in Her Story may be one of its greatest strengths. Polygon's Jeff Ramos calls Her Story a tumble down a rabbit hole whose path is determined by what you manage to notice on the way down. That's what's so brilliant about the simple search engine as a game mechanic. It comes down to your own ability to notice things and put them together, to pursue certain threads of investigation on your own, with no urging or hand-holding from the game. The search engine mechanic also makes Her Story feel incredibly singular. Colin Campbell says, "I don't think you'll read a better mystery novel this year. Think of the most thrilling mystery novel you've ever read. The kind of book that you couldn't help but blast through in a sitting or two. What was it that pulled you through that story? Twists and turns, shocking revelations, or perhaps just the basic desire to piece together the truth?" Phil Kohler has read compelling critiques of Her Story based on its overall plot. The story that the writer is telling here is frankly a little absurd, requiring a healthy dose of suspension of disbelief. But if the mystery genre is about satisfying a desire to piece together the truth, Her Story is the purest distillation of that. It's no surprise really that Her Story caught on so strongly with our staff and with others in a year that's seen a meteoric rise in popular culture's interest and investment in true crime stories. Megan Farokmanesh calls Her Story the closest thing to a serial video game that exists. Moreover, though, Her Story gives its players a safer space to perform the mental gymnastics encouraged by so many true crime stories. Her Story is also a shareable experience. So many people on staff told Phil how they had played the game with a significant other watching, how it had slowly morphed into a co-op experience. It was the same way with him. After being confused and mystified for the first 10 minutes or so, his fiancée got extremely interested in the game. Within an hour, she was shouting out suggestions for keywords to search. After every new video snippet, they'd talk through their evolving theory on what was happening and update their personal timeline. For a game with no multiplayer at all, this was still a hands down the most interesting cooperative gaming experience Phil had all year. Of course, we also can't ignore that Her Story is the rarest of rarities, a modern full-motion video game. The mystery is revealed via snippets of video, featuring real actors, or in this case, one real actor, the outstanding Viva Seifert. In the case of Her Story, it was a whole game, a whole experience, shouldered by one woman. If she failed, the whole game would have failed. And for Phil, certainly, for most of Polygon's staff, she absolutely did not fail. One of the most striking things about Her Story, something that stuck with Phil long after finishing it, is its linearity. The game has no real win state, and once you've uncovered enough videos by searching, you choose when you're ready to stop. Allegra Frank described her reaction. "It took me a while to actually finish the game, because when I was asked if I understood it now, if I'd had enough, I had to keep answering no. I didn't know what was going on." I think that's unique and fascinating and ultimately wonderful, that the game has no interest in telling it to you straight. In the end, it's Her Story's lack of closure that may have put it at the top of our minds when it came time to vote for our Game of the Year. There were a lot of games that we loved this year, some that made the list and many that didn't. But in a year where more games were considered for our Game of the Year honors than ever before, no game struck more Polygon staff members more strongly than this one simple, subtle mystery tale.